So I just thought we'd jump right in. I am joined obviously with the Budget Director, Chris Kolb, the State Treasurer, Rachel Eubanks, and the MDOT Director, Paul Ajaba. Wanted to take a moment to answer questions and to dive a little deeper into the budget if you are interested. Sure, I just want to make a few remarks. So the state budget is generally started around Labor Day. That's the process, and then introduced in February. We, of course, started on January 1st and have been working extremely hard to get to a budget that actually solves problems, that is real, it's honest, it can be measured, and we can be held accountable. We ran a lot of different potential solutions, and this became very clearly what it was going to take to get the job done. So it's not easy to propose something that of this magnitude, but we think that it's the solution that requires one historic vote that pulls a lever and solves a lot of problems, as I said during my presentation over there. And so we feel confident that this is the way that we're going to go about fixing the trajectory that Michigan's on, and interested in questions that you have, and certainly if you want to direct them to me or to one of the other three here, feel free. So let's jump in. Yeah.
Governor, I spoke to the Senate Majority Leader this morning. He said 45 cents is off the charts, not going to work. So how flexible are you in terms of making the gas tax work and the negotiations that go into that?
Sure. This is day one. They're still digesting and appreciating what is in this budget. One of the exciting things about this budget is anyone in any part of the state can click on their school district and see what actually funding the roads will mean in terms of increased investment into our education system. The whole goal here is to make sure that we get to a spend level of $2.5 billion additional on our roads. If the majority leader or anyone else for that matter has a solution that gets us to that point, it still means we can pull a lever and fix all these problems, and that's the goal here. So I put an honest solution on the table. If someone's got another one that gets us to that spend level, I'm interested in working with them.
Yeah, I know you said that during the campaign that you wanted to work with the legislature to come up with a solution, but you also said very often, if the legislature won't work with you, you will take it directly to the people. Is this what you would take directly to the people? If the legislature can't agree with you on 45 cents, would you take that to a ballot initiative?
Well, we're getting way ahead of ourselves here, Rick. This budget process is just starting. I have worked so many budgets. I know it'll take a lot of turns and a lot of time, and energy is going to be expended. My goal is to get something with the legislature that we can sign into law that gives people the assurance that we're going to fix these problems, that gives them the relief they need to get by in the interim, and that is honest so that the taxpayer knows every dollar is actually going to the problem that we tell them that we're going to fix. Having been a legislator, I know the worst thing you can do is cast a vote and represent to people that you fix a problem and then come short. That's what we're trying to avoid here. This is a real solution. The legislature has an important role in this process, and we're just getting started.
Governor, did you hear anybody say from the Republican side that this was death on arrival?
I have not heard that from anyone.
And how do you interpret that one way or the other?
I think there are a lot of leaders in that room who understand the magnitude of the issue, paying attention, and are just at the beginning point of deliberation and negotiation and the ability, the chance to work together. So I am going to press forward. I'm encouraged by some of the remarks that have come out from conservative-minded people, from the business groups, from the frontline educators. So I think that there's a real coalition here that sees how serious this is and what it's going to take to fix it, and that this is, for once, a real solution that will actually fix the problem.
Are you willing to link this to another unrelated issue to get votes on the gas tax?
This is day one of the budget process. It's begun today.
Yes.
There's a lot of different things that always move concurrently with budgets, and often conversations will touch on a couple things. We'll see. But my focus is making sure that we get a budget done that fixes these problems, cleans up drinking water, educates our kids, makes the biggest investment in Michigan kids' education in a generation of kids in this state, and closes the skills gap and fixes the damn roads.
Governor, in a debate last fall, Bill Schuette suggested you were going to raise gas prices by 20%. You sort of scoffed and said that's ridiculous. Now you're coming out with a 45 cent proposal. How'd you arrive at that? And was it always your plan to raise gas taxes?
Oh, no, it was not always my plan. I'll tell you though, taking the reins and getting a real appreciation for how quickly our roads are deteriorating, working with experts at MDOT and with the budget office, it became clear that as we ran a number of different potential scenarios, even the what do those guys refer to themselves as?
Well, I call them something else.
Oh, okay. Even the plan that Bob Emerson and Cherry and Sycamore and
The old guys.
the old guys, even that plan doesn't get you there. We ran all of those numbers. We've got to get to 90% good and fair roads, and there's only one way to get there, unless the legislature wants to raise revenue in the other places that Chris highlighted for them today, whether it's the corporate income tax or, we thought user fee that is actually the right size to fix the problem was the way to go. And so, but we did undertake a lot of debate and explored a lot of different possibilities, and this was the smartest, quickest way to remedy the problem in a way that helped us address these other issues that are vexing our state.
That's not going back on a campaign promise, though, is it, Governor? I mean, just...
My campaign promise was to fix the damn roads. This plan does that.
Governor, if you raise fuel taxes 45 cents a gallon, how would you expect a gas station in St. Joe, for example, ever to sell another gallon of gas since people could just run across the border to Indiana to fill up?
I understand that there are going to be some geographic complications, Paul. But the fact of the matter is, when you come from Indiana into Michigan, you know you're back in Michigan because our roads are so bad. When you get off the tarmac at any airport in the state and you get on the roads, you see it. You see it in your 5-minute commute from East Lansing to Lansing, if that happens to be your drive. This problem is going to get precipitously worse if we don't take bold action now. We're at 78%, which everyone's scratching their heads thinking, I'm surprised it's even at that high at the moment. It will fall to 65% in just 2 years, 60% a year later. We are on a rapid decline, and we have to take action to fix this. If someone has a $2.5 billion idea that annually infuses additional resource, this kind of resource into our infrastructure, I'm open to listening to what it is and seeing if it's workable. But it has to be a real solution. That's what people of our state said they wanted, and that's what they deserve.
Governor, there are other...
You mentioned that there were some lawsuits that you're going to have to deal with from the previous administration. Can you get into more detail as much as you can?
Unfortunately, I can't go into too much specificity, but I think we all know that there have been a lot of lawsuits around the Flint water crisis, and that they've been years in process. They were started many years ago. There's a very real possibility that the bill will come due in the next 4 years while the time I'm governor in this term, and so that's something that is always in the back of my mind. Our budget makes a contribution, another deposit into the budget stabilization fund. That's an important aspect to this budget, but everything is increasing pressure on getting this budget right. And I highlighted that, as well as the spending spree they went on in the last day of lame duck, as well as the IT issues that we're confronting throughout state government, as additional pressures people might not see that are obvious, but that are definitely real.
Governor, you cited solely on the gas tax as the source of the new revenue for roads. You can go to the fees on heavy trucks. There's been talk about some type of a mileage measurement. Some people still kick around tolling. There's been concerns that the gas tax is a declining source of revenue because of efficiency.
Yep.
Can you explain why you went that route?
So this is a user fee, and we thought that that was something that might help us get it done, because people can see that the dollars will actually go to where they're going to be. There is an increase in electric vehicle, what they will pay based in statute when we raise this, and so that will be increased. In 5 years, we guarantee that there will be a, what do we call it, a commission to come together and to assess the progress that we've made, to report on it, and to make recommendations about modernizing how we ensure that users are are paying to maintain the infrastructure. And so we recognize that there's work to do on those fronts, and we are taking that seriously as well.
So why not the heavy trucks, though? That's been such a point of contention.
So the diesel tax is going up, and I don't know, Paul or Chris, if you want to jump in here with us when it comes to the heavy truck piece.
Oh, we're going to pass it to me. The numbers I've seen is that you can increase the heavy truck registration fee, but you're only going to get $50 to $100 million tops on that. That's far short of $2.5 billion. Not saying that can't be part of a package, but you have to get a spend level of $2.5 billion annually. That's the increase we need. So other people have other ideas, that's great. This is one that's constitutionally protected. It's directed towards the roads, and there's a fairness to it. The more you drive, the more you pay. I drive 33,000 miles a year on my commute and job. I will pay. I understand that, but I'm using the road network more than others. The vehicle registration is constitutionally dedicated to roads, but you pay it the same amount regardless of how much you drive based on that value of your vehicle. So we thought this was a fair way of doing it, a user fee that's constitutionally directed to roads, to transportation. They can't go in and rate it. This is, in one sense, the way to do it.
To clarify on the small business tax rate increase, you're not necessarily asking small businesses pass-throughs to now pay the corporate income tax. You're just saying that they can continue to pass through it at the 6% rate, not the 55% rate.
Yes, and that's precisely why I've got Rachel with me, in case you have more intricate questions than that, but I can, yes, confidently say yes to that.
And to follow, do you anticipate any kind of pushback on that piece, knowing that it also offsets the pension tax repeal, which others support as well?
Well, on the campaign trail, I talked a lot about, repealing the pension tax. I voted against it when the Snyder administration pushed it through to pay for the business tax, break that was attached to it. So I didn't attach these two issues together. That was done by the Snyder administration. As there is legislation coming through the legislature, there's no question they got to be able to pay for it. And so this was a legitimate way to make sure that we pay for the relief, but also to ensure that drivers are feeling some relief, our senior citizens in particular. And I don't know, Rachel, if there's anything more to add on that front. But.
Yeah, certainly. And I think one of the things not to lose sight of here is the interplay between state and federal taxes. I mean, because this will be a way different, the 6% pass-through tax will be able to be deducted at the federal level in a way that in the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that was took effect in January of 2018, that income, we have deductions limits on those income now. So this will allow an increased deduction at the federal level. So even though you won't, the net tax, the next tax will actually be, a smaller portion than the total overall tax. So for example, if the pass-through tax is estimated to raise about $280 million in 2021, we estimate that the net tax will be actually $105 million. So we're looking at, we think this is a good way to meet a lot of the objectives that the governor just talked about.
I was confused about that too, Sarah, real quick, the pass-through versus if it's a corporate income tax. It says it includes an individual income tax credit for owners to avoid double taxation.
That's right.
So they would, why would they need a tax credit if it's still charged at a
That's
pass-through
how
level?
they're able to realize the savings on the federal level, is to include that component.
Okay.
Governor, on the road funding plan, if I understand this correctly, you guys are redirecting the $600 million in general fund from the 2015 package. Why not kind of keep that and put the gas tax on top of that to put more funding into roads?
So this budget puts us in a position where we're actually ensuring that dollars that are intended for roads are going to roads. That general fund dollars that have been diverted and put into transportation are actually going into general fund expenditures like universities. And it gets universities out of the school aid fund expenditures. So it's actually straightening up and ensuring that dollars that are going where they are intended to go. I don't know if you saw the one slide, but it's, I think, the budget office's favorite slide, but it shows, that this is the current way we're moving money around from from one fund to another. This is part of the reason that the public is suspicious and suspect of that dollars go where they're supposed to go. They question it legitimately so because of these practices. What we're trying to do is make sense of it so that the public can see the dollars are actually going where they're supposed to go, that they can be tracked, and that they can be, we can hold state government accountable.
Governor, when you talk about
American income tax credit, are you saying that poor people will not in the net pay a gas tax increase?
Well, I suppose that you could put it that way. I mean, it has to line up with the, it's what a family with 2 children will receive that kind of a benefit at the certain income level.
Is that true? I mean, they're not going to pay the gas tax?
No,
increase?
They'll pay it, but it'd be offset by the credit.
All right, so they're taking care of it. What about the average motorist who's getting no tax relief at all? We're just telling them to suck it in.
The average motorist is paying, over $500 a year to fix their car.
But not every motorist is paid that.
The average one is. And if you live in Detroit, it's a lot higher than that. We're paying, right now, we're doing it about the worst way that you can because we're not funding and we're filling potholes and we're stealing money from other funds in order to fill potholes that don't actually fix the problem. This problem, Tim, when you look at, I'm glad I brought this deck with me. When you look at the trajectory of what the last quote-unquote fix got us, thanks, Paul. This road situation is not going to get better by doing nothing. It's not going to get better by doing half of what we've proposed. It only gets to 90%, which is the standard and the goal. When you take when you make a big decision and a big leap like this, this isn't easy. This isn't fun. No one likes having to propose this, but this is 40 years of disinvestment in the state of Michigan that is coming due now. And if we don't fix it, the fall is precipitous. The fall means that we're going to get further and further behind what other states are doing. The fall is going to continue to mean that we can't educate our kids or close the skills gap if we don't take a bold choice and change in path now.
You talk about money going to where it's supposed to go. This new money would be outside of PA 51. My question is, if that's a good idea for this 2.5 billion, what about the other 5 billion? Why continue to use a formulation that was put in place even before I was born?
Well, and precisely, why do we continue to use a formula that's 68 years old, right? We need to fix these most heavily trafficked roads that have the most damage. That's precisely what this budget does. Going back and renegotiating every dime that goes through PA 51 is maybe something that should be done at the appropriate time, but that's not something we're taking on in this budget right now. This budget is about trying to fix the problems that are the most glaring that we are confronting, and that's jeopardizing our safety on the roads and our ability to draw investment into the state of Michigan.
Last one, guys. On the chart you held up, I want to ask you about that because it shows that for 4 years, the percentage of roads in good or fair condition basically holds steady instead of falling, continuing to fall precipitously. What are you going to do in 4 years when voters are wondering, why doesn't it seem like roads have really improved overall? They just haven't gotten worse. How are you going to, you're going to have a lot of people screaming, where did all this money go? Roads are still, I'm not seeing an overall difference.
Well, Zach, that's something that we'd love to fix them all overnight, but the fact of the matter is, with the resources, with the manpower, it's going to take time. This is 40 years in the making. I told the committee today when I addressed them, this isn't easy, it won't happen overnight, but the hard work has to start now. We're undoing 40 years of disinvestment. We're trying to get Michigan competitive with every other state in the nation. It's not something that we can, accomplish in one year or 2 years, but we will be on the trajectory. The problem with this kind of a line here is the real threat is one that we don't see today, but is looming tomorrow. When we start to fix it, you might not be able to appreciate what the difference is between those two lines, but that's exactly the kind of work that we're doing. And when we get to 2030, we will have 100% of our communities with clean drinking water. We'll have 60% of our adult population with a post-secondary degree or certificate. We'll have 90% of our roads in good or fair condition. And we're going to be in a top 10 state for education of our children.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, everybody.